I'm here with Steve Arshinoff. Steve, we're going to be talking about a topic near and dear to my heart, which is OVDs. Now, we collectively call them by that one name, but they're not all the same.
That's right, Josh. First, thanks for having me. And I've been giving this course that we're talking about here, other places as well, and it's become popular in the last few years for different meetings. And I think it's because surgeons are starting to understand that we have multiple OVDs and not just one. Or you can't just buy one from one company that can do everything for you. And understanding that fluids come in endless variants and that we can use them for different things in the anterior chamber or for other procedures as well allows us to do more things. We have the initial ones, the viscous cohesives and the less viscous dispersives. And then we have, since then, Pharmacy originally made Helon 5, which was a viscoadaptive, meaning that under high fluid stress, when you have a high flow rate, it behaves as a solid. And so it breaks apart, behaving sort of as a pseudo-dispersive, but a bit different, but similar. And then you can have the very low viscosity devices like the HPMCs used in lots of parts of the world. And then we have the newer class of viscous dispersive, the first one being Discovis that Alcon made. So there are many, many OVDs, and they're all different. And understanding them allows us to use the ability of these things to partition the anterior chamber and make one space, two or three spaces, to just make our surgery easier and then safer.
So let's start from basics here. With dispersive agents, these are agents that fill space and tend to be more difficult to take out from the eye. In a sense, they've got longer staying power. Where do we use them in the context of surgery? In my own cataract cases, I will use a dispersive agent at the start of the case.
Okay, I think it's easiest to understand them if you understand what the terms mean exactly. And dispersion cohesion is an endless variance of one long line, and you're somewhere along that line. You cannot have anything that's both dispersive and cohesive. You can have it behave as sort of dispersive under some environmental conditions and somewhat cohesive under different ones, the same as water is fluid when it's warm and ice when it's cold. But under the conditions of the surgery, which don't change that much, you have only one particular parameter. So when you use dispersives is really when you want to protect endothelial cells, because dispersion means that it's like a solution of salt. When you leave it, it doesn't stick together, it just comes apart like drops of water, and it doesn't have any intention of staying together whatsoever. Whereas cohesion means you grab the solution and the whole thing comes. So Helon GV, Helon 5 are examples of really, really ultra-cohesive devices. But when you put a phaco or an IA or an irrigating cannula into the eye and you irrigate, you're going to wash out most of a cohesive device or none of it. Either it'll all stay or it'll all come out. So we use dispersives to protect spaces. So if you have a low endothelial cell count and you want to protect the endothelium throughout surgery, you would then use a dispersive at least up against the cornea. If you have some missing zonules, perhaps not enough that you want to put a ring in at the beginning, because a ring in the beginning of the surgery makes the surgery more difficult. But let's say 1 or 2 clock hours of missing zonules, you can put a dispersive there, you can cover it and push it around the lens with a viscous cohesive, and thereby when you start your surgery, the dispersive just sits there and protects that space. Similarly, when you have IFIS, intraoperative floppy iris syndrome, one of the nice tricks is you can make the eye stable with Helon 5, but in the perimeter of the eye, you can put a dispersive like Viscoat. And what that does is, in the event that you have your irrigation or your phaco going and you start to aspirate fluid in the anterior chamber and you start getting some turbulence, the dispersive OVD in the angle prevents the iris from flopping there. So it makes the whole case more stable. So in August, we published an article called the Try Soft Shell Technique, and that goes through and explains to surgeons how you can use multiple fluids in all cases, or you can use just some selectively for what you want to achieve in a certain case. So you can make every little microenvironment of the anterior chamber what optimizes the conditions for your surgery.
Let me set something up too. Phacoing or the residence phacoing, there's a posterior capsular bag rupture. I have them maintain irrigation with a phaco, so I'm not having a rupture in the vitreous face. I'm going to reach for an OVD to fill into that rent. What is the sort that I'm going to reach for?
Okay, well, the problem with residents or with talking about that is it depends how big the rent is. So most rents almost always start off as very small holes. You want to catch it then, because if you catch it then, you can just stop the surgery, keep the eye pressurized so your foot is on the phaco pedal but not in position 2 or 3, and then you take a dispersive viscoelastic and you go and you inject around the hole. And if you inject around it, you sort of take the vitreous and you push it back over the hole rather than allowing it to go out into the perimeter of the capsular area, which will make your surgery much more difficult. Once you have it confined and you fill up the anterior chamber as well, so you pressurize the eye, you can take your phaco out, and then you can do a posterior capsulorhexis. And then your case becomes a regular case. Relatively easy, except for the posterior capsulorhexis, but you can take the dispersive and push the vitreous back through the hole, and then you put a viscous cohesive in front of it, so you have the space stabilized, but you have the dispersive in the anterior part of the vitreous behind the hole, so that if you do remove the other OVD, you have a natural fracture line where the viscous cohesive meets the dispersive. So you take that off, but the dispersive stays in the anterior vitreous to protect you from sucking vitreous into the anterior chamber.
What I think we should take home from this is that this is not one tool; it's a box of tools, and that we use them in different ways, and oftentimes context will call for more than one tool at the same time.
It's like many other things we do. We have to understand them because not every patient who comes to us is exactly the same. And if you understand them, it makes your surgery much easier. And it's nice for me because my course has become popular at ASCRS initially, then ESCRS, now the Academy, and the Canadian meeting as well. And so multiple places show that they actually want to learn how to use these things. And it's surprising at the end of the course, the attendees come up and say, gee, I never knew they were that different. And I think we should know that. And I think it helps everybody.
Yeah, great stuff, Steve. Steve, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.